What happens when one of America's most controversial agencies gets roasted on national TV, right in the middle of a massive deportation push? This week, South Park took direct aim at ICE, turning real-life immigration agents into a punchline. And now Donald Trump's own border czar is furious, calling it bad timing that could undermine the entire operation. But is this outrage about protecting public safety or protecting political optics? Imagine launching one of the most aggressive immigration crackdowns in years, only to have one of the most infamous comedy shows in America turn your operation into a national joke. That's exactly what just happened to Donald Trump's border czar. South Park, known for pulling no punches, released an episode that doesn't just poke fun at ICE, it portrays them as bumbling, overzealous, and downright ridiculous. Now, the administration is scrambling, calling it bad timing and warning it could damage the public's trust in immigration enforcement. But is this really about national security, or is it about controlling the narrative? Today, we're unpacking the outrage, the satire, and the real stakes behind this clash of politics and pop culture. The controversy surrounding a recent episode of South Park has taken a strange and heated turn. Just as the U.S. government ramps up a new wave of deportations, Donald Trump's so-called border czar has stepped in front of cameras to complain that the show's satirical portrayal of immigration enforcement couldn't have come at a worse time. The episode in question took aim at immigration and customs enforcement, turning ICE agents into exaggerated caricatures and weaving them into an absurd storyline. For millions of viewers, it was just another example of South Park's trademark irreverence. But for the people inside the administration responsible for immigration policy, it felt like a public relations disaster. In his remarks, the border czar lamented what he called the bad timing of the episode. According to him, the country is in the middle of a sensitive period where public perception of ICE agents is crucial. With increased deportations making headlines, any portrayal that undermines the credibility of enforcement officers, he argued, risks weakening public support for the policies being implemented. He insisted that the timing wasn't just inconvenient, it was harmful. South Park, of course, has never shied away from poking fun at authority figures, regardless of which political party is in power. But this particular episode touched a nerve. Behind the scenes, administration officials are reportedly concerned that pop culture portrayals like this one feed into a broader narrative that ICE is heavy-handed, unprofessional, or even comically inept. While critics of the agency would say those images are grounded in reality, defenders see them as an unfair distortion that ignores the dangers and difficulties of the job. The border czar's frustration is rooted in the belief that every joke, every meme, every viral clip has a cumulative effect on how the public views immigration enforcement, and that when those images are overwhelmingly negative, it can erode the political will to keep certain policies in place. The South Park episode itself was classic satire, absurd scenarios, over-the-top humor, and a storyline that highlighted the contradictions in immigration policy. One scene showed ICE agents bungling basic tasks, while another portrayed them as overzealous enforcers obsessed with quotas. To fans, it was hilarious. To the administration, it was a headache. The border czar claimed that ICE agents in the field felt mocked and demoralized after the episode aired. He suggested that this kind of pop culture ridicule could even make it harder to recruit and retain personnel. Critics of his comments were quick to point out that South Park has lampooned almost every institution in America over the years, from the military to Hollywood to the president himself. They argue that satire plays an important role in a free society, holding power to account and reflecting public sentiment. If the depiction of ICE struck a chord with so many viewers, perhaps the real issue lies not with the cartoon, but with the agency's own track record. Civil rights advocates argue that ICEA's aggressive tactics, including raids that separate families and detain individuals for extended periods without trial, have already damaged the agency's public image far more than any animated TV show could. The Border Czar's statement also opened up a broader debate about the relationship between entertainment and politics. Can a single TV episode really sway public opinion on complex policy issues? Or is the administration simply overreacting to a piece of satire that will fade from memory in a week? Media analysts note that while individual shows may not single-handedly change policy, they do contribute to the cultural conversation. When a program as influential as South Park shines a spotlight on a particular issue, it can spark discussions in living rooms, on social media, and even in political offices. For the Trump administration, the timing of the episode is particularly sensitive because the latest deportation push is part of a larger strategy to demonstrate strength on immigration ahead of the next election cycle. Public opinion is sharply divided. Supporters of strict enforcement see ICE as essential to national security, while opponents see it as an agency in need of deep reform or even abolition. In that polarized environment, any portrayal that mocks or delegitimizes ICE becomes another point of contention. Some political observers believe the Border Czar's comments may actually backfire, drawing even more attention to the South Park episode and inviting additional scrutiny of ICE's actions. In the age of the Internet, trying to suppress or downplay criticism often has the opposite effect. Clips of the episode are now circulating widely online, and the Border Czar's remarks have only fueled curiosity. For South Park's creators, the controversy is probably welcome. It reinforces their brand as fearless satirists willing to take on any target. Meanwhile, ICE agents themselves are a mixed bag in terms of reaction. Some reportedly brushed off the episode, recognizing it as over-the-top comedy. Others, particularly those who feel under siege from public criticism, took it more personally. In interviews with conservative media outlets, a few agents said they were tired of being portrayed as villains, especially when they believe they're simply enforcing laws passed by Congress. That sentiment echoes the administration's broader defense. If people don't like the way immigration laws are enforced, they should demand changes from lawmakers, not vilify the people carrying out the orders. Of course, the other side of that argument is that enforcement agencies have discretion in how they operate, and that discretion has often been used in ways that critics say are cruel and unnecessary. South Park's writers tapped into that perception, turning ICE into a metaphor for overreach and absurdity. By exaggerating the flaws and contradictions of the system, they made a serious point through humor, a tactic that has been part of political commentary for centuries. So, while the administration pushes forward with its deportation agenda and ICE continues its operations, South Park will move on to the next absurdity. But the conversation sparked by this clash between satire and authority will linger, reminding us that in politics, timing is everything and so is the ability to take a joke. In the end, South Park will move on to its next target, but the conversation it sparked won't disappear. The episode didn't just make people laugh, it made them think about who enforces our laws, how they're portrayed, and what that means for public trust. Whether you side with the administration or with the satirists, this moment is proof that comedy can hit just as hard as any political speech. If a cartoon can rattle the corridors of power, maybe it's not just entertainment, it's a mirror. And the reflection isn't always flattering. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, so you never miss the stories behind the headlines.